If, as we know, the distances are real, this section answers the next question: can Iran back the map with action? And this is where the story gets more serious, because Iran is not asking the region to fear a theory. It is pointing to a record. That record did not appear overnight. It was built in layers, tested in stages, and watched closely by analysts for years. The turning point for many military planners came in January 2020, after the U.S. strike that killed Qasem Soleimani. Iran responded with a ballistic missile attack on an Al-Assad airbase in Iraq. That event mattered for one reason above all: it gave analysts something measurable. This was not just a threat delivered through proxy fire or deniable militia action. It was a direct Iranian missile strike on a base hosting U.S. forces. Public reporting, Pentagon statements, and open-source satellite analysis showed that multiple missiles struck the base area, damaging structures and infrastructure. More importantly, the strike pattern suggested a level of precision that changed how many experts talked about Iran's missile force. The lesson was not that Iran could destroy every hardened target. The lesson was that it could place ballistic missiles close enough to key fixed infrastructure to create real operational damage and shock. In plain terms, Iran had shown it was not only willing to strike directly, it was getting better at doing so with purpose. That was the first layer of credibility. The second layer came through repeated pressure below the threshold of full war. Over the following years, the region saw continued harassment through Iran-backed militias, maritime seizures, drone transfers, and attacks by one-way systems that were cheap, flexible, and hard to ignore. In Iraq and Syria, U.S. positions faced repeated drone and rocket threats. In the Gulf and nearby waters, shipping became part of the pressure map. In Ukraine and elsewhere, Iranian drone designs and exports drew wider attention to the range and utility of the systems Tehran had helped normalize in modern conflict. Each incident by itself might look limited. Together, they built a pattern. That pattern matters because military credibility is not just about the biggest strike. It is about repetition. It is about showing that your command chain can sustain pressure over time, through different tools, in different theaters, without losing strategic control. Iran's approach has often relied on ambiguity right up until the moment it chooses visibility. That blend of shadow pressure and selective open action is one reason its signaling can be hard to read but dangerous to dismiss. Then came the third layer, April 2024. During the direct exchange with Israel, Iran showed something larger than precision and more complex than proxy pressure. It showed coordinated scale. Public reporting described a mass launch involving drones and missiles sent in a package designed to test defenses across time, distance, and direction. Many of those projectiles were intercepted. That part is true and important, but interception does not erase capability. In military terms, the event still proved that Iran could assemble, launch, and manage a large multi-vector package under intense global scrutiny. And that is the key point. No serious military expects every weapon to get through. Perfect penetration is not the standard. Saturation is the standard. Pressure is the standard. Signaling is the standard. If an attacker can launch enough systems from enough directions, it can force defenders to make hard choices. They must spend expensive interceptors. They must expose radar coverage and response patterns. They must keep aircraft, ships, and personnel under heightened strain. And they must accept that even a successful defense may still mean disrupted operations, temporary shutdowns, or damage to selected functions. For the Pentagon, that changes the reading of the latest Reach claim. The concern is not that every missile will hit. The concern is that Iran has already demonstrated several pieces of the larger puzzle. It has shown launch capacity. It has shown increasing precision against fixed sites. It has shown the ability to coordinate different strike types. It has shown comfort with operating through proxies and directly, and it has shown a habit of moving from ambiguity to visibility when the message requires it. That makes the current map harder to dismiss as empty theater. The arsenal is not hypothetical. The command chain is not hypothetical. The precedent is not hypothetical. Even if some of the messaging is political, the capability behind it's on a visible public record. But there is one more layer that may matter even more than the missiles themselves, because the real danger may not be a single direct strike in isolation. It may be a broader crisis design, one that mixes direct fire, proxy pressure, and political timing into one coordinated package. So if Iran's proof of capability is already on the table, what are the headlines still missing about how that capability could actually be used in a real crisis? What most headlines missed is this: Missile Zone is not only about a first strike, it is about decision pressure. That is the hidden layer. If Iran wanted only to boast, it could have issued another warning full of slogans and threats. Instead, the stronger effect came from presenting reach in a way that forces others to think through consequences. And that is the real twist. Tehran does not need to destroy every U.S. base to change U.S. behavior. It only needs to convince commanders, allied governments, and local elites that in a fast crisis, too many assets could be threatened at once. That changes everything. Because once people hear missile zone, they imagine impact points. But military planners think in systems. They think about aircraft parked on open aprons, fuel storage, ammunition handling, port access, radar coverage, maintenance cycles, communications links, contractor housing, backup power, command posts. If even a few of those become uncertain, the pressure spreads beyond the base itself. A runway can be repaired. A nervous host government is harder to fix. A delayed tanker cycle can ripple across operations. A port slowdown can affect naval tempo. A threat to undersea cable routes or nearby maritime choke points can raise the cost of everything at once. That is why the missile map is also a pressure map. And this is not happening in a vacuum. Since late 2023, the region has been under strain from several directions at the same time. Iran-backed groups in Iraq and Syria have tested U.S. positions with rockets and drones. Hezbollah pressure has kept Israel's northern front active. The Houthis in Yemen have disrupted shipping in and around the Red Sea with drones and missiles, forcing rerouting and raising insurance and transit costs. Even when these fronts are not centrally commanded in a simple, visible way, they create a compression effect. Defenders have to divide attention. They have to guard more directions at once. They have to assume that one incident may be a distraction for another. That is where the hidden layer becomes more serious. Iran does not have to fire every shot itself to benefit from the crisis architecture. It can let pressure build from multiple axes while keeping enough ambiguity to manage escalation. One direction brings drone alerts. Another direction threatens maritime disruption. Another raises fears about missile range. Add cyber pressure, disinformation, or political agitation online, and uncertainty starts doing strategic work on its own. Even before a missile launches, decision-makers are already under stress. And then there is the host government problem, which is one of the least discussed parts of this story. A U.S. base in the Gulf does not exist in political isolation. It's on the territory of a partner state, and that state has its own domestic pressures, economic worries, and regional balancing acts. If an IRG-linked map publicly places a facility on that territory inside a named strike band, the message is not only for Washington, it is also for the host capital. Suddenly, local officials may face quiet questions they did not want to answer in public. Are we now more exposed because of U.S. cooperation? Do we need more American defenses on our soil? If we ask for more protection, does that make us look more tied to Washington at the worst possible time? If we say nothing, do we look unprepared? That political tension can be more useful to Iran than a direct hit on a hardened military site. Because not all bases matter in the same way. Some are militarily critical, some are mostly symbolic, some are politically fragile because the host country is managing parliamentary pressure, economic strain, or public anger over regional war spillover. A missile envelope that reaches a politically sensitive partner may serve Tehran better than one aimed only at a heavily defended airfield. Pressure the coalition, pressure the partnership, pressure the confidence behind the military posture. That can be enough to change behavior. Now look at the U.S. side of the equation. A careful Pentagon reaction may project steadiness, but it still reveals priorities. If Washington starts leaning harder on Patriot and THAAD integration, that tells observers which threat bands it takes most seriously. If aircraft are dispersed, tanker routes adjusted, intelligence assets repositioned, or naval air defense layers emphasized, those are not random changes. They are operational signals, and Tehran studies those signals closely. This is one of the most important and least visible points in the whole story. The announcement can force movement even without a shot being fired. If the United States reinforces defenses, Iran can say deterrence is working. If Washington publicly shrugs, Iranian media can frame that as denial in the face of vulnerability. If host countries ask quietly for reassurance, Tehran gains evidence that the pressure landed. If no one responds openly, uncertainty still grows in private. In that sense, the map creates a reaction cycle almost no matter what happens next. There is also an economic angle hidden inside the military one. Offensive systems are often cheaper than the defensive systems used to stop them. A drone or relatively low-cost missile can force the use of expensive interceptors, extra surveillance hours, more maintenance pressure, and more fuel and readiness costs. Public studies From defense analysts and budget offices have repeatedly highlighted the imbalance between low-cost attack tools and high-cost defense architectures. That cost gap matters because a threat does not need to break a base to impose a burden. It only needs to make defense more expensive, more constant, and more politically visible. And then comes the final twist: timing. A map like this is never just about hardware if it appears alongside negotiations, sanctions friction, Israeli operations, or maritime tension. In that context, the IRG is not only describing capability, it is setting the bargaining environment. It is telling every audience the same thing in different language. To Washington, any move has regional consequences. To Gulf states, proximity is now a liability. To Israel, the wider theater can be activated. To domestic audiences, deterrence is alive. To markets, risk is rising. That is why this looks less like a simple weapons statement and more like strategic communication wrapped inside a military claim. The map does not merely say, "We can reach you." It says any future confrontation will spread faster, cost more, and shake more capitals than you may be ready for. That is the hidden layer. The missile zone is not just a strike envelope, it is a decision architecture built to force caution before combat even begins. Still, there is a fair counter-argument, and it matters. What if the IRG is overstating both the precision and the real coercive value of this expanded zone? Now the counterpoint, because it matters. A threat can be serious without every part of it being true at full value, and there are solid reasons to be careful before treating this announcement like proof of an imminent strike plan. The first reason is Iran's long record of theatrical military messaging. Tehran has often used dramatic visuals, edited launch footage, and broad capability claims to shape deterrence and domestic prestige at the same time. That does not mean the weapons are fake. It means the presentation is designed to magnify effect. Public claims about range, payload, precision, or readiness do not always match what outside analysts can verify independently. In simple terms, some of the message may be real, and some of it may be inflated on purpose. Range is the easiest place for that inflation to happen. A missile may be able to reach a target under one launch profile, with one payload, under ideal conditions, and still be far less useful in a contested combat setting. Accuracy changes with distance. Payload changes performance. Guidance can be affected by stress, countermeasures, or launch conditions. So when a map suggests that multiple U.S. positions sit inside one big danger band, that should be taken seriously, but not taken literally in a simplistic way. Being inside theoretical reach is not the same as being inside reliable strike quality. The second reason for skepticism is defense. The United States and its regional partners have spent years preparing for exactly this kind of environment. Layered missile defense, radar integration, electronic warfare, hardened shelters, decoys, dispersal planning, and rapid runway repair are all part of the playbook. Some bases are much better protected than public discussion suggests. Others likely use deception methods that outside observers cannot easily track. In other words, the map may show exposure, but it does not show the full defensive picture. That matters because even in recent high-profile attacks, interception and defense have played a major role. During the April 2024 Iran-Israel exchange, a large share of incoming threats was intercepted by a combined defensive effort involving Israel and partners, according to public reporting and official statements. That does not cancel the threat, but it does show that a large launch package does not automatically translate into large operational success. Military effectiveness is measured not only by what is launched, but by what gets through, what survives to be used again, and what strategic result follows.